Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Larry sent me a note, and I think we're going to be hearing more about this type of stuff in the future. sfgate.com published a story by Joshua Boat. Cruise vehicle gets stuck in wet concrete while driving in San Francisco. And so we're talking about an autonomous vehicle that's just cruising along and decides to drive across some wet cement. And this is one problem they've got to deal with when it comes to autonomous vehicles, is what kinds of things can it identify that are out of the ordinary. So obviously, if you've got a place like, the Bonneville Salt Flats, where it's just perfectly flat in every direction for quite some distance, you can probably go out there and drive around and not worry about running over stuff or running into stuff, okay? But if you're in traffic, in a city, and there's all kinds of things you encounter. Other vehicles, pedestrians, construction markers, and that stuff can vary wildly from site to site. And so this one encountered some wet concrete and didn't understand that you can't drive through it easily. So a cruise vehicle got stuck in wet concrete driving around San Francisco's Western Addition the other day. A San Francisco resident who lives in the area told SF Gate in an interview that he saw the car stuck at a construction site on Golden Gate Avenue between Fillmore and Steiner. Car had no passengers inside. He said, I can see 5 different scenarios where bad things happen, and this is one of them. It thinks it's a road, and it ain't, because it ain't got a brain, and it can't tell that it's freshly poured concrete. So that's his use of those words. Whenever I use them, I get in trouble. He later saw people pulling the vehicle out and back onto the road. A Cruise spokesperson confirmed to SF Gate that Cruise workers removed the vehicle from the concrete, and the vehicle has since been recovered by the company. What about the damage to the roadway? Now, the man they interviewed is a skeptic of driverless cars, but he acknowledged that one of the key marketing points brought up by Cruise and Waymo, human drivers are prone to making errors also. And that is true. That is true. When a light turns green at a traffic light, I just don't jump on the accelerator. I look left and right for some idiot who's going to run the light. It does happen. But he's still skeptical of the autonomous vehicles, which he describes as creepy. The company's vehicles were hit hard by an onslaught of Outside Lands attendees last weekend. A slew of vehicles were unable to be rerouted because of wireless connectivity issues, while a viral TikTok clip showed a Cruise vehicle stuck on a key intersection just outside of Golden Gate Park. Last Thursday, the California Public Utilities Commission voted 3-1 to expand Cruise and Waymo's services in San Francisco. Spokesperson for Waymo told SF Gate that it has 100,000 people on its wait list for San Francisco service and will let them access the service in the coming weeks. And that's the entire story. And so I've got no problems with technology advancing. I think that technology advancing is a good thing. We don't want to be living in the Stone Age. On the other hand, there are certain things you've really got to resolve and work out before you unleash them in public. And one of them has to be driverless cars. Because, just think about the weird things that can happen. You're driving along one day and you get hit by some driverless car. And then it drives off. Will you be able to hold somebody as accountable there as you could if there had been a person in that car who drove off? I'm just curious. Because I can picture somebody going, well, yeah, I owned the car, but I wasn't there. And yet leaving the scene of a damage accident is a serious thing. It should be taken seriously. But I will have to back up and say I completely agree with the guy who's speaking here, saying if these cars make mistakes and they make the news now because that's news, we have to understand that humans make mistakes also. And some of them can be quite stupid. And so a friend of mine puts down concrete for a living. Okay, that's what he does. And I was talking to him about this, and he goes, "Oh, we had the craziest thing happen the other day on one of our job sites." And I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "We're doing a road for the county road commission, and we were doing one of the turn lanes that pulls into a subdivision. And so we tore out the old one, and we of course had the whole thing like barricaded off with orange barrels, and there's actually a guy there with a sign and all this stuff." And he goes, "As we're pouring the cement in, or concrete, and we pour the concrete in, and we're moving up the road as we're doing this, We watched as a guy in a car cruises along really, really slowly past a couple barrels and then carefully maneuvers between the barrels and then drives onto the cement and car sinks in the cement. So he goes, all his guys go running over there. Like, dude, what are you doing? And he very sheepishly goes, well, my GPS told me to turn right here. As if he's not even watching the road. All he's doing is looking at the GPS, doing what it tells him to do. And so obviously, drivers have still got to use their heads. And it reminded me of a story my father told me, because my father went to Finland with my mother a few years ago, back when GPS units were standalone only. They hadn't been built into any cars yet, as far as I know. And so my dad and my mom rented a car in Finland because they had to figure out how to get around over there. And they both spoke Finnish, but they thought, hey, a GPS, that'll be nice. And my dad said they're out sightseeing one day, and they're driving along, and they had put in a destination to go to, and the thing told him to turn right. Turn right. And it may have said it in Finnish, I'm not sure. My dad said the funny thing is, of course, number one, there was nowhere to turn. Number two, there was a lake right there. There was a lake, and it said, turn right now. Turn right now. And my dad said, well, I didn't turn, but and he thought it was amusing, but he didn't turn. But you do hear stories like that. And I mean, famously, I've seen a photograph of I think it was a UPS van or maybe a prime delivery vehicle that was stuck in a little tunnel on a golf course because the driver had gotten confused and followed the wrong directions. The next thing you know, he's driving around on a cart path in a full-size vehicle and got stuck someplace. I mean, so people behind the wheels of cars make mistakes. And I know some people are going to say, Steve, I'd rather have the entire population of cars out there be autonomous if it'll replace all of the idiots out there right now. And I'm not sure what the ratio of idiots is to good drivers. I don't know. It probably depends on where you are. But this is the kind of stuff that worries me. And you'll recall that there's, of course, the big company that makes electric cars, Tesla. And they have, of course, some technology that allows the car to do a lot of, but not all, of the decision-making on behalf of the cars driven, right? And we've heard stories about things that those cars have encountered, and by encountered, I mean hit. And it's never just normal stuff. It's like, oh, by the way, there was just an emergency vehicle sticking out into traffic in an odd way, and apparently whatever the thought process is that this thing goes through couldn't process that, okay? So will they dial this in and get this better? I'm sure they will. How long will it take? I don't know. And it does, of course, probably take a lot of real-world testing to make it happen. So in the meantime, I think we're going to have a whole bunch of vehicles stuck in wet concrete. But my friend who does the concrete work told me, he said, Steve, it's a nightmare. Number one, it was a pain to get that vehicle out of the concrete. And then number two, it was also, he said, expensive to fix. And so he's like, we had to tear all that out and re-pour it. And we're not going to do that at our cost because some idiot did that. And he goes, so of course, you know, the police were called. They did a police report and took all kinds of photographs and submitted all kinds of claims here, there, and everywhere. And he goes, it eventually worked out, but it was just a nightmare. So crazy stuff does happen. But yeah, here we have an autonomous cruise vehicle gets stuck in wet concrete while driving in San Francisco. So Larry, thanks for sending it. SF Gate published at Joshua Boat wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Never confuse a single defeat with a final defeat.